So at the end of September at Dreamforce, they launched some fantastic new stuff during the admin keynotes. And one of the things that piqued my interest was the user access and permissions assistant. So I thought I'll show you around a little bit and how it works. So my name is Connie Haasdonk. I'm from Salesforce Trainer, and I'm here to give you a little bit of a demo on what this assistant does. So first thing you need to do is go to the App Exchange. So let's go there. Here we have the App Exchange. As you can see, we have here our user access and permission assistant. And so what we need to do is we need to get it and put it into our org. Now you have a couple of choices there. You can download it either in your sandbox or in your business org. If you're like me, for example, don't want to do it for a client, you want to play around with it yourself, what you can do is set up a developer org and then play around with it in there and install it in there. And that is what I have done. So let's go to my developer org and see what I have done in there. So here's my developer org. I installed the package, and what it does is basically it makes for us an item in our app launcher. So if I click here on the 9 dots and I then say view all, in there I see an app that is the user access and permission assistant. Already opened that. And what you can see is here where you can do all this fantastic stuff. So it's not within the setup, it's actually more in a front end where you can play around with it. I've been doing that a little bit for the last couple of days, still getting my head around it about what it really does and where it's useful. But let's see what I've discovered so far. Now, first of all, you can do some analyzing. So what you can do is you can use it by user. So you can say, okay, I want to know for one specific user what they can do. Or you have options to look at a specific permission or permission set groups. Now, as this is a developer org, it's a very plain org. So I did play around with a couple of things. So I did set up a user. I set up a relatively simple profile. And I also created some permission sets, but not permission set groups. So I'm not going to go every single option here. But let's look at the first two, user and permission. Now, let me look for my user. So I'm going to Maggie. And what it then does, it will say, first of all, for my standard objects, what is the access? So if I click on the drop down next to account, what it then does is it says she has all kinds of objects on the object permissions, and also some access on the field level, whereby we know if it's a yes, they have access. There's also here, if it doesn't show, it means they have no permission whatsoever. Now, if you want to know where the permission is coming from, you can click on the eyes. If I click here on the eye on create, I see it's coming from a profile. But if I, for example, click on the eye for delete, I can see it's coming from a permission set. And in that way, you can very easily see for each of the objects what the access is. So like I said, it was quite limited in here. So I played around like accounts and opportunities. I have no custom objects in here. But I can imagine if you want to really analyze one user for your org, it can be quite powerful. But I think it's going to be more interesting, instead of doing it by user, is looking at permissions. So I click my user away. I then click on permission. Again, you can do here user, object or field. Now let's do user and let's look at the permission. And these are sort of the system permissions that we have. So what I was interested in, for example, is you see this is a very long list. Can they convert leads? So let's click on it. And it gives you then a list of who can convert leads. Now you see here, myself can do it. We can also have a Maggie who can do it, but some other people who are not able to do it. And you see some further information here. So this is, I think, where it really comes into play. How often is it that people say, oh, somebody doesn't have access or does have access? Here you have a very nice, quick overview of who has the kind of access they need. Let's look a little bit at the converter. Now, I looked at this, I tried it, I wasn't sure if I liked it or not, because what it does is you can convert a profile to be completely a permission set. So for example, I have here, say, a sales team profile. I can click on the drop down and I can say convert to permission set. I need to then give it a name. So for example, I call it sales team permission set. But what it then does is this whole profile with everything in there becomes then one big permission set. Can be useful because of course, things you can start doing like cloning and copy and pasting things. I haven't found the real usefulness of it, but it is quite quick and quite easy because what you do is you click convert. As usual, it does the magic. You can then check the batch job, so what it has done, and I can also click on view permission set, and then I can actually see in here my permission set with all your normal settings, and I can then click on there and see what is in this permission set. So for example, if I then click in object settings in there, I can see there is some account access in there. There is some case access, like I said, some contacts and probably some opportunities, but for the rest, there's nothing there. So again, can be useful, cannot be useful. I think this is really a trial and error thing to find your best use case. And then the final thing in there that I thought was useful is reporting. Again, this is kind of a big thing. I found it quite slow at moments to run the reporting. You can report by user and say, let's look at object permissions. Now, if I would click all, this is where it becomes really scary. It does over 1,000 options because that is how many objects there are. So if you ever want to know how many objects there are in your org, check here and you see how big it is. The same, for example, if we say user permissions, and if I say all, I get a list of nearly 300 permissions. I think here it can become quite a challenge to do a proper report. But let's look at one. So I thought the object permission speaks for itself. What then I can do is say run report. Oh, I need to select the user first. Thank you very much. I click on there and I can say either one user or all. So let's go for all users and then run my report. And then you have to wait a while because it does its stuff. And here you can see, we have basically 29 pages to go to, and I see here the user with the ID. And if I make this column a slight bit wider, you see this is my actional relationship center for partner, which is disabled. Again, you can click through these pages. I can see here a bit of object permission. I think this is where it really becomes a bit more understandable and interesting. But you see here the kind of access we have and how you can play with it. You have then the option there to also export your report. So I think 99% of the cases you will export this file into Excel because it's far easier to manipulate it in there than when you do it in here. I think overall, I can think it definitely has its uses. For me, the two big things are this report, which I think is really handy, and the overall permission analyzer. Say you have somebody that says, I can't do things, or they ask, okay, this team, person in the team, what are they doing? You can actually have a quite quick and easy feel of what they're doing. Because actually, which all the boxes are ticked. If we know, we go to a user and to their profile, and let's do that. Let's go to a user. And I click, say, on Maggie. It is very difficult to figure out here, okay, what can and can she not do? I know she has the sales office profile and she has one permission set, but actually, what does it tell me? Which boxes can she tick? Not easy to tell from here unless I go into everything. So I think it's a useful one. I think it's definitely one people need to start playing around with it, getting their head around. I think also you need to get a lot of data. Like here in my sandbox, I have a couple of users, couple of profiles, probably more limited. I think in any business org, this is going to be really interesting. So I hope you liked this. I hope you thought it was useful. Drop some comments about what you thought, any tips, etc. And, I might do some more of these. Thank you for joining.